following program on Other Derana 24 is classified for general audience. It is intended for all ages. It contains little or no violence, no strong language, and little or no sexual dialogue or situations.
Tonight, we discuss the future of legal education and the legal profession in Sri Lanka. Are the frameworks in place currently adequately on par with international standards, or are we far behind? A very good evening and thank you for joining us on yet another episode of Law, Land and Liberty, where we bring to you key legal topics and break it down for the layman. Now, today's topic is something that concerns everyone that's in the legal field, and that's on the future of legal education in Sri Lanka and also the future of the legal profession in itself in this country, and if it's up to international standards and what we can see moving forward. Well, to speak about this, we have someone that's not a new face on the show and has been with us previously to discuss very intricate topics, and that is Mr. Rajeev, Amarasuriya, attorney at law. So thank you very much for taking the time to join us here tonight. A little bit of an introduction on Mr. Rajeev. He is the past secretary of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka. He's also a member of the governing board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, as you would recall from one of our previous episodes. So safe to say we have a lot of a wealth of information when it comes to breaking down this topic appropriately for our viewers here tonight. A little bit of a breakdown on how we're going to approach the topic tonight. First, we're going to be talking about the fundamentals of legal education and also the basis of legal practice in Sri Lanka. Next, we'll be going into the current context that we see and if we're on par with international standards. And finally, we'll be talking about the future of legal education and also the legal profession of the country.
Hello, my name is Amarasuriya and I'm an undergraduate in the field of IT. My question is on fundamentals. How has the basics of legal education evolved over time?
All right, well, without any further ado, let's get right into the discussion. We have a lot to break down here tonight. So once again, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to actually explain these concepts. I'm sure there's a lot of questions brewing among the viewership as well of where we're heading when it comes to the standards of legal practice and also legal education in Sri Lanka. But before we get to the current context, I'd like to ask you about its evolution and also its legal history. If you could run us through a little bit of a brief history on how exactly legal education in Sri Lanka has evolved over time?
Yes, that's an important question. So the Council of Legal Education was established in 1873 and the Sri Lanka Law College was established the year thereafter in 1874. Prior to that, it was a scheme where the Supreme Court conducted a certain exam after a period of apprenticeship before a senior lawyer. So with the commencement of Sri Lanka Law College, that became a formalized system of legal education. We had the Faculty of Law commencing thereafter, I think it was in 1947 in Peradeniya and then thereafter in Colombo. And then we have the Open University, we have the several other universities, we have a department in Kandy, Peradeniya, then we have the KDU, and of course a lot of foreign recognized degrees, some overseas, some conducted here. And then you come into the stream of the Sri Lanka Law College where you sit the finals. So if, for example, I was at the law faculty where I did my degree, and then I sat for the finals at the Sri Lanka Law College, and upon completion, I completed my period of apprenticeship of 6 months, but it takes practically a little longer because of the timelines. And then you are admitted as an attorney at law of the Supreme Court. So that is how it happens. I think the Sri Lanka Law College also has provided, done a lot during this period since 1874 in formalizing, structuring and mentoring all of these young law students to convert into lawyers and law officers.
Right, and sir, I'd like to actually delve a little bit into something you mentioned earlier, which is the pathways to becoming a lawyer in Sri Lanka. You of course mentioned our most important form of legal education would be when it comes to, of course, the law faculty, law college, and getting attorneys through that route. But we've also seen, as you mentioned, international pathways open up for us within Sri Lanka that are recognized in the country as well when it comes to on the road to becoming a practicing practicing attorney. If you could explain to us on what we can see in the current context as the main pathways towards becoming a lawyer.
So the first pathway, of course, is direct entry to the Sri Lanka Law College. It's a competitive exam. I mean, I think you have 10, 15,000 sitting, and they take 200, 300 per year. You have to have 2 C's and an S at the advanced level, and of course have a credit pass in either official languages at the O levels, and then you face this competitive exam. So that is one direct pathway into Sri Lanka Law College, and then 3 years. Once you complete the 3 exams, you have to then do your apprenticeship, and you get in. You can be admitted by the Supreme Court as an attorney at law. Then you have the local universities, the University of Colombo. Then we have the University of Jaffna. There's a department. Then Pera, then you have, and now we have, of course, the Open University and the Kotalawala Defence University. So all of those, also you have to complete your degree, and that is a different, I mean, you know how you get into the university system. You complete your degree, and then you have to sit for the final exam of the Sri Lanka Law College, and then you get into the same stream. Then we have several or many foreign universities which have been recognized by the Council of Legal Education as recognized degree awarding bodies. So if you have a degree from any of those institutions, then you have, this is something introduced about a year or 2 ago, where you have a special entrance exam that you have to sit, that is a little competitive again, and then thereafter you sit, and if you pass that, and if you're admitted, then you have to sit the final exam at Sri Lanka Law College and again go through the same process. So you have to have, either you have a recognized degree and you enter law college, or you go through the entrance exam and enter law college. You complete your exams, and then you sit, then you complete a period of apprenticeship with a senior lawyer, and then upon certification, the Supreme Court is entitled to admit you as an attorney at law for the Republic.
Right, so a fairly streamlined process that we have seen, but I believe we have a little bit more to pick into when it comes to the standards of it all. Of course, we've seen international influence in the country when it comes to legal education and the foundational legal education, especially foreign LLB degrees and LLM pathways as well.
Yes.
But I'd like to ask you, despite having foreign degrees and of course international influence in the legal education sphere, do you believe, sir, that our current standards when it comes to legal education in the country are on par with the international norms?
Well, let me put it this way. We have been on par and sometimes above international norms at different points of our history. But in the last couple of decades, the world also has moved on. And I think we have to also look at how development is taking place. There are a lot of new areas in economies. And the traditional legal education that we have provided since 1874 to the Sri Lanka Law College and then the university system has to be updated. So whilst we have a lot of strength, a lot of positives, a lot of knowledge, a lot of those who can, lecture, competence, we need to also move where the demand is. And still what I see is that we are still very traditional in our legal education. We are looking at the traditional subjects, traditional ways of doing so. But in this very competitive world, we must look at opening up the avenues for the young lawyers. And we must look at also giving specialized knowledge to our lawyers, because now what is generally what happens, and it has been happening for some time, is that we have an output of lawyers who have knowledge of all the areas. And then, of course, it's up to them to specialize thereafter. But given the numbers coming out, and we have fair number, maybe 1,000, 1,500 per year, the court practice cannot accommodate all of those numbers directly. And what happens is that many of the young lawyers who come out, for the lack of proper career advice or career guidance, they sometimes come straight into the court practice. We must welcome lawyers coming in. But the sad part of it is that many of the lawyers who come in don't spend too much time, spend 2 or 3 years, and they move out. And that is a loss to them. Because careers, you must start as soon as possible. Even in Sri Lanka, youngsters get into careers a little later than maybe in other countries. Because in another country, and it's the West, by 21, 22, you may have finished your tertiary education, and then you come into the force. But here, sometimes it could be 26, 27, 28, and you're losing time. And then if you go down a wrong career path for maybe 3-4 years, you're again losing, but your parallels or your colleagues who take the correct path would go ahead. So I think we need to, there are a lot of new areas of law which have developed. I mean, I'm not saying that everyone must say aviation law, you can't have 100 lawyers, but we might need 5 lawyers, 10 lawyers. Now we are looking at a financial center, the port city. So then we must now look at it in advance. We can't wait till the financial center is set up and then look for the lawyers, because otherwise we will have to then have lawyers coming from abroad. So we must look at, and also I think we must be futuristic. We must look at what this country needs in 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years in the form of what type of lawyers to need. And that we need to equip. I mean, there is now a lot of technology. We speak of AI. So a lot of the traditional things which we as lawyers do will be easily done by AI. And however much you resist it, your client is going to go and pay $2, $3 or $5 and get an agreement drafted. That we can't stop. So we need to now build our lawyers to go one step beyond. Make use of the AI, get used to it, and then we develop it and provide something which is better than what AI will provide. So I think that must come into education, and we must build versatile lawyers. Because in my view, any institution, any place needs a couple of lawyers. And that room we must fill, because what a lawyer has is not just a piece of paper which says you're an attorney at law or you have this thing, but we develop something called a legal mind. And with experience, when some problem is put to us, it happens subconsciously, but you're looking at it as a lawyer and not someone who's not a lawyer. So that is important for any institution, in any institution, any association, anybody. You need that input, and we need to develop lawyers to come out who can, basically get into any sphere, get into those specialized areas. And with this media, you need lawyers. So likewise, what I'm trying to say is that we need to bring all of those concepts and then start from the beginning. From day one at law college, day one at the law faculty, day one at foreign university, you need to build that. You need to build in those values, the traditions we speak of. That must be told to you at day one, not when you finish 3-4 years and you have maybe 10 days of apprenticeship training. That is not how it should be. But in 10 days, what can you, once you have gone through a system of 4-5 years, it's difficult to change. That must be, and the Bar Association, we have a responsibility to get that done. Infuse that little difference at that point.
Exactly. I think I'd like to draw on one specific point before we go into the rest of the discussion, of course, which is the specifics of delayment and how we can find ourselves as members that are in the legal community or in legal education currently. We can see ourselves falling 3, 4, 5 steps back simply because of the education system we are part of, and also because of the fact that we will not be given proper career guidance at the necessary time. And of course, we've seen certain unrest among the youth that are part of law college as well, and part of legal education in itself, seeing a delay due to stricter exams and also higher standards and thresholds when it comes to passing these exams, especially when you mentioned the special entrance exam previously as well. What are your thoughts on these specific issues where we see a little bit of a bottleneck when it comes to the passing out of lawyers?
Yes, so there has been issues in the past. It has been on for some time. Let's start with the position that there is a good quality education provided, and that we must accept. But we must also accept the fact that there is a lot of room for improvement. Whether it's Sri Lanka Law College, whether it's a university, I mean, if you benchmark it to a foreign university, you would know in advance, say if you join an university, you will know for the next 3 or 4 years when your assignments would be due, when your exam will be held, and when your results will come out. And then you plan your career. So we need to have some kind of uniformity, consistency, certainty in education. And this is not something which is, specific to the providers of legal education. This is across the board. Our university system needs to get into that space. And what one must remember is, say, a student say 3 months or 4 months of a time for a student is very important. And that into 100, 200 is a lot lost to our economy because you don't come in. And so you need to have standardization. Sri Lanka Law College must, the University of the Law Faculty must. You need to know when your exam is. And there should not be any, whatever the excuse, it should not happen. You must know in August or September or December, my exams would commence. And my exams would finish on such a day. Results will be out on such a day. I can plan to start my job or career or whatever thereafter. So that is something which is lacking in Sri Lanka. You look at any university overseas, say in England, you would have those days provided. So that is something we need to do. There are some issues with some exams. I mean, ideally in an exam you have to have a certain percentage passing. So those things, but this is it's a new area which has been looked at. So I think those corrections will be made, and I have confidence in the administration. So let's be hopeful that all of this is corrected and we move forward. Having said that, I think also there's a need for all of these bodies to now start speaking and thinking together. Because now if for example, a student at a university in the state sector is exempted in the first and second years of law college, then one law college must also ensure that those requirements of what they expect, which you don't do, are covered in the law faculty. And I think it's not limited to the name or the subject, but the subject content. And the Bar Association has also a role to play, where we need to now bring in the practical aspect of what is required in the legal profession.
Exactly. I want to get into the specifics on what responsibilities are owed to the, of course, the population that are partaking in legal education and the legal fraternity through the BASL, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka. But before that, let's take a very short commercial break. You're watching Law, Land and Liberty. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, my name is Gitika Pereira and I'm a business analytic. My question is on the current context. Are Sri Lankans standard for the legal profession on par with international law?
All right, welcome back to Law, Land and Liberty. We're in conversation with Mr. Rajeev Amarasuriya, attorney at law. So once again, thank you for the previous segment. I believe we covered a lot of ground as a foundational context to this discussion, and there's a lot of intricacies and nitty-gritties that I want to pick apart with you. But before that, I had to unfortunately cut you off before you explained the significance of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka's influence when it comes to shaping the legal fraternity and also the future of legal education in Sri Lanka. If you could tell us how significant of an impact that the Bar Association actually has and holds when it comes to the future of legal education and legal practice in Sri Lanka.
So the Bar Association represents almost all attorneys at law in the country, and we are now in our 50th year. So there are two representatives from the Bar Association and the Council of Legal Education, which supervises and controls Sri Lanka Law College. As Secretary of the Bar Association, I also sat on the Council of Legal Education, so we have direct involvement. We had also a committee several years back which formulated the future of legal education, a roadmap, and that went through a lot of stages, and that is also in place. Some of the changes we have seen, especially at the Sri Lanka Law College, has been in line with this roadmap of the future of legal education. We have several standing committees, subcommittees. So the Bar Association has an important role to play from the point of view of the practical operationalization of legal education and those coming into the legal profession. So there are, from either opening it out or restricting it, there are certain views from time to time. And also the Bar Association has stood very firmly on the quality of legal education, where you have had degrees awarded by several foreign institutions, some of very high standard, some of subpar standard. So the Bar Association has come out and resisted or objected. And of course, some of those degrees also with time we have seen have improved. And that is also constructive. So from the point of view of the legal fraternity, when you say the Bar Association, we have membership. Our membership represents every sector of the legal profession. So whether they are practitioners, whether they are the corporate sector, whether they are the government sector, whether they are judges, many of the judges are also members of the Bar Association, or whether they are legal academics. So one could say that the Bar Association is a mother organization of all law or legal professionals in this country, and they could be placed at different locations. So with that representation, something which the BASL puts forward should ideally represent that of the entire legal community. So that is the strength we have. It's not some one group which is saying something. So in line with the view of the Bar Association, from time to time various ideas, suggestions, proposals are put forward. But I think now going forward, we must take from the experiences of the past, the work done by everyone in the past, we need to benchmark our legal education to a world-class standard. And when I use the word world-class, I do so responsibly for this reason. Our legal education, when I said at the beginning, was at very early stage, was absolutely world-class. I don't think we were below anyone. And our curriculum, our quality of discussion, the classroom, all of that was at a very high level, and our jurists of the past were renowned. But having said that, with maybe our system of education, how it was broad-based, with that somewhere down the line, we have missed the bus. So we, of course, since we were already there, we can go back, and that we must do. The one problem probably is that the large numbers coming out. Because earlier when you had in a class you had 10 or 12. I think in the law faculty they must have had a class usually 10, 12, 15, 20. But now you have 200 and 300. So the interaction is less. But also we need to we have a lot of tools which are provided by technology. So that also can be made use of. We must, and the numbers have grown everywhere in the world. So we need to up our standards. Another thing which our system does not have adequately are resources. We need more resources across the education sector, but I'm speaking on behalf of the legal profession, we need more. I know for a fact that in the university system, year on year, governments want the numbers increased. So say you have intake of, say, hypothetical 300, they will say, well, next year we want 350. But then you must also increase the number of lecturers, increase the number of, maybe just because you increase numbers and you will be pleasing one segment, but the quality comes down. So if we are going to invest in our future in this country, the education, the legal education, there must be resources. Resources for Sri Lanka Law College, resources for the law faculties, of course private faculties are fee living. But that is how we must proceed. Governments must support. And all of that is interconnected. We must encourage more people to join the academia. That must be a area where you must have, your top the best in your class must ideally join the academia, because that is, and there is so much you can provide. We have had, we have even at present, very reputed lecturers, professors, jurists, and we have had in the past. So those are areas which we must think out of the box. The Bar Association Bar Association is not only a practitioners association. Court practitioners, Bar Association represents all of these stakeholders. And universities, we must speak, we must help, we must support. We must support all of the other sectors where we have our members. And I say nothing less than world class we must achieve.
So, sir, I'd actually like to ask you to come off your point of being world class as well. How you mentioned that we previously had such standards, and now somewhere along the line we've really fallen off, unfortunately. And there is potential hope of coming back to that former glory. But I'd like to ask you, relating to the resource issue that we do see in all sectors, not just in the government, but in the country, throughout the island in itself. When it comes to the issue that the law college and of course the legal educational institutions are facing, lack of academic staff, or maybe just not enough compulsion towards moving to academia, do you believe that's because of the culture that we have perpetrated within the legal fraternity relating to practicing in courts is our most viable and sometimes only option when it comes to legal practices, and that we haven't seen any sort of diversification and any sort of splitting out and branching out into other areas? Are lawyers with attorney at law oaths only considered valid and valuable in the courtroom?
That's a misnomer to this extent. You can have sometimes a much better career, a life outside court practice. I mean, it's nice to be in the court practice, but not every lawyer needs to practice in court. But you'll still be practicing the law in different capacities. You might be in a corporate sector, you might be in a government sector, and you probably may be doing something more important than being a practice. So that goes down to career guidance and advice. Each person has a set of skills, special skills, strengths and weaknesses. You might be very good at your oral submissions, your public speaking, all of that. Then advocacy. You might be good in court. You might be very good in your organization. You might be very structured, well organized. With a legal mind, you'll do very well in the corporate sector. Corporate, a lot of in other countries, commercial entities have counsel, in-house counsel, and you do that part. So there's a lot of scope. If you look at Singapore, if you look at the per capita number of lawyers to the population, it's more. There are more lawyers in Singapore per population than we have here. So, and that is because it's a vibrant economy. There's a lot of things happening, and all of those lawyers are not in court. And some of them probably are making much more money than they do in court, because they are, in agreements, negotiation, business opportunities, and so on. So we need to encourage lawyers. So there is this debate whether there is an overcrowding of our profession, and that's something which is put to me or sometimes. I say that it is not an overcrowding of the profession, because you need lawyers. But the problem we have is maybe we have too many lawyers coming into court practice as opposed to going into the other areas. And that's an important point, because I have seen over the years, a lot of the areas where lawyers have traditionally been handling are now being taken over by some other professions. I mean, even taxation, even, areas like compliance, even human resources in companies has a lot of involvement of labor matters, law, court matters. And previously, a lot of the human resource heads of companies have often been lawyers. But now we are seeing trends. So we need to, as a profession, identify those opportunities. And we must drive our members, the young ones especially, from the beginning to those, of course, voluntarily on the basis. But if they have the guidance, if they know, well, I'm going to be good at this, I'm going to like this. So, and one can't say one is better than the other. It's always, when you're in one side, you think the other side is brighter. But all of these, the law practice, maybe you will have more stress and more demand of time, but then you'll have maybe longer holidays when you have the court vacation. But in the corporate sector, you'll have, probably you can go home earlier and so on, but you'll be working the whole year. So there are positives and negatives. So that is what.
So we can see that if we open the forum, or basically just open the eyes of students that are already walking into the halls of legal education in Sri Lanka, we don't have an overpopulation, overcrowding problem. We just have a misdirection problem when it comes to the dire areas that really do need lawyers in its presence, but we don't really see much advocacy when it comes to the education in those fronts as well.
And the Bar Association must, be very progressive in trying to identify those places. And I unfortunately, we have not done that. We have to identify those opportunities, and we have to train our young members to reach those opportunities. Because in the competitive world, it's not whether you're a lawyer or accountant or somebody else, it's how you present yourself and the value you bring. And we need to build value to our members. You might be in a tenured law, but you must be further skilled. You must have those opportunities, and the bar association can provide those opportunities. But we have at our disposal all of the resources in the legal community. Now, when I was secretary during that COVID time, 2020 to 2022, and we were all, in a state of, how do you do? I managed to organize 175 webinars which we did, and which is available on the BASL YouTube channel, available to everyone. So that showed how many areas we have that lawyers can specialize in. And also we must, and I'm very keen to do this year, we need to broad base. We have certain areas of, law which is within us, just a few people who are specialized. So that knowledge must flow, and everyone must have equal opportunity in our profession.
There shouldn't be some sort of off-limit area.
Yeah, so whether you come from a family with lawyers or whether you're just completely outside, that equal opportunity must be provided. And the legal profession must run on merit. If you're good, if you're hardworking, if you're diligent, you must succeed. And those barriers which sometimes, form, not intentionally, but it comes, must be broken. And everyone must have equal access, equal opportunity. Because the legal profession or the legal career is something different to everything else, and it's something we once we are into it, we'll never leave this legal profession. And opportunities must be available. Whether you're in Colombo or outstation, you must have those opportunities. And I say that there was a difference when there was a geographical barrier, but those are broken with technology. Now, whether you're in Colombo or whether you're, say, in Point Pedro, right on north, you can access your client, you can participate, you can be involved. So we must introduce those opportunities and not keep it within, whether it's within a group of people or whether it's Colombo-based or Colombo courts, we must broad-base, and it must be available to everyone.
Exactly.
Because this is not anyone's private property.
Yeah.
It is.
We need to see a free flow of information and to better diversify and also to make sure that all areas can be covered. Of course, we don't have a numbers problem. We have a misdirection problem, and also the awareness issue.
And also, just to add, I'm sorry, the lawyers who come out are very, very competent. If it's a university, you come with very high Z scores. Law college is extremely difficult. Out of 10, 15,000, you choose 200.
Exactly.
So they have highest quality and standard, and that they're world class. So then if they don't reach that, continue that, then it's a problem in the system which we must address.
Exactly. I think that's one of the most important aspects as well, where we see that the cream of the crop are admitted, but unfortunately from there on we don't know what exactly will happen in the future when it comes to their professional futures as well. I want to dig into the practical aspects of practicing as well, and when it comes to if our current system is actually effective in actually bringing apprenticeships and practices adequately for the current suited environment. But before we do that, let's take a very short commercial break. You're watching Law, Land and Liberty. We'll be right back with the final segment.
Sri Lanka Law College. My question is on the future. Can we expect change or development to the legal practice and legal education in Sri Lanka?
Welcome back to Law, Land and Liberty. We're in our final segment in conversation with Mr. Rajeev Amarasuriya. So thank you very much once again. We're in our final segment. We still have quite a bit to cover, but unfortunately our time is running steep. I'd like to ask you one of the most important questions now that we got most of the legal education aspects down. When we were speaking about the Bar Association and its importance, you mentioned how apprenticeships and their significance will lead to what a lawyer could be doing in the future and in what field. If you could tell us how exactly our apprenticeship system has evolved, and also do we see in the current context that it has kept up with international standards, or should we be looking at other systems like vocational training?
So we have a scheme where it's been there for as far as I know. scheme where you have to apprentice under a senior lawyer for a period of 6 months, and there are certain guidelines which you get, and you have to fill some forms of court visits. I think that needs to be updated, because I don't think in 6 months you can convert a law student into a lawyer. But the problem being that we can't extend it beyond 6 months, because there's a need for the law students also to start working and earning. So I think you have to work downwards. And whilst you have a very intense program of apprenticeship, you need to also start from day one, because the likelihood of a student who starts ending as a lawyer is very high. I mean, if you pass those exams, you repeat, and 80-90% would go through. So you start from day one. You work out what they need, what a law student or a young lawyer would need, and that part must be provided. But we need to also, you spoke about outside the country, the vocational training program you get in London, for example, England. And there are, in that it is not subject knowledge, but your advocacy skills, your skills of debating, argument, negotiation, all of those are provided. So you can't provide that in 6 months. So we need to pull it back, and I think the Bar Association also needs to get involved, and we need to provide all of those aspects which are provided in other jurisdictions as training, as vocational training before you become a lawyer, in your legal, the education you follow. Because of the practical reason is, I don't think it is fair in our Sri Lankan context to expect a lawyer or a student who graduates to stay another 2 years before joining the legal practice, because you have also a lot of our students have economic difficulties. I mean the reality is that, I know situations where now you have and I'm going to say this openly, the Mahapola, which is given as a disbursement for yours, so some of those children send half of it back home, and they survive on the half. So it is, and that is a country problem. It's not a problem which is
solely in the law fraternity. Yes.
So you can't keep a student who comes out to stay another 2 years, without support. So let us bring it downwards. And advocacy, negotiation, soft skills, and those are now provided in other professions. So we need to look at the entry into law faculty or the law college as the first date from the first point where you start all of this training. And then you can have a 4-year period of 4 or 5 years of training in addition to what you learn. So whilst you build the curriculum, if you factor some of these into that, you need to, moot courts. A lot of the universities now have started. Those are essential. And the Bar Association must set out saying, we must encourage all of them. If they have lack of funds, support it in that way. So I know some of the foreign universities which have branches here, they have now set up moot courts. Recently, Law College, after 150 years, this year, Law College set up a moot court. And that's a positive thing, but for the flip side is, why didn't we have it all this time? The local universities must have. I know many don't have. So those are things we must promote, and we must see legal education as building a all-rounded professional who is then able to take on the world as a lawyer. So in response to your question on apprenticeship, and also we have the system of, you have to follow 10 or 15 lectures. But I don't think in 10 lectures you can convert someone. It has to be from day one. And let us, from as soon as possible, start calling upon the universities, start calling upon law college to provide what we expect from lawyers from day one. And the Bar Association must support that initiative. And the biggest difficulty is human resource, and we can provide that. We can provide the best of the best. And we will call upon our membership to go and provide that on an honorary basis.
Of course, practicing and the ability to be practice ready, one would call it, is not some crash course that should be injected into a student that's fresh out, but it should be a consistent practice that has to be cultivated over the years that the individual is enrolled in the law college or the law faculty. So I'd like to ask you, you mentioned, of course, relating to foreign universities, but we really didn't talk about this growing issue that we have seen when it comes to legal practice in Sri Lanka, which is foreign law firms that are hoping to set up shop in Sri Lanka. Of course, with Port City coming in, we'll probably see a lot more of that and an influx of foreign lawyers and foreign legal professionals and their interference into our local legal climate.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this? How can we actually
there are two schools of thought. The protectionist school of thought, where say we must protect this, as opposed to opening up. If foreign lawyers are going to come, it must be a win-win for our local lawyers. Because one, of course, the advantage of foreign lawyers coming in would be that there will be technical competence coming in. But the flip side of it is that we can't allow foreign lawyers to come into the space of local lawyers and take away the work. So this must be looked at very objectively. Speaking on the side of the local lawyers, I would say it has to be looked at. There cannot be any loss of what we have. But if it's a positive, it's a win, then of course different. And also foreign lawyers coming in, we are a sovereign state. We are not some small country somewhere. So if foreign lawyers have to come in here, we need to have reciprocal arrangements in those countries. And so if there is a country which wants to have set up lawyers doing some kind of, I don't think foreign lawyers should be allowed to come into court. That's something for the local lawyers. The foreign lawyers should not come and try to do something which already we can do. There is no need that is happening. Maybe a financial center, Port City, where you have the need to have specialized knowledge on certain types of finance, then you might need that expertise. But that process should not be permanent. That must be up until the time our lawyers can be equipped and learn from that and then take it on. So it must be a very, even though we are a small country, we are a maybe developing country, we need to also negotiate as a sovereign state. So if there is someone or some firm, then we must have the right to go there. Why is it only one way? So if a foreign firm can set up here, then we must ask the question, then can our firm set up there? I mean, under some certain requirements. So that, it may not be so simple, because, but there may be, say not a firm, but you might have opportunities of practicing. So we need to work out that, and also we need to look at what the benefits a foreign law firm or foreign lawyers bring. And if it's a benefit to the system, benefit to the community, benefit to our lawyers, yes, but maybe something which is not permanent. Because, as I said, we have been world class. Our lawyers, young lawyers, and our lawyers are at a very high standard. But maybe some of this knowledge we don't have. So we need to then provide that knowledge, and we'll take it on. So it's an open area which has to be looked at, but it must be negotiated well, and the Bar Association will take on positions on this, and we will objectively look at it. I'm certain I can say, it's not going to be one way. But if objectively, but we must protect the membership, protect the work we have. And certainly if it's something, there must be a need. We don't need to liberalize Sri Lanka to open it. It doesn't happen in other fields. So if there must be a need. If there's a need, if that need can't be fulfilled by what we have, then of course that's something we need to look at.
Right. Unfortunately, sir, our time has come to an end in this discussion. I believe we covered quite a bit of ground when it comes to the fundamentals and exactly what our viewership needs to know when it comes to the current context of legal education and also the future of the legal fraternity in Sri Lanka, how we can expect it to develop as well, and what we can do personally as well to ensure that we don't have any stopgaps when it comes to the flow of education, the flow of information in this very rapidly evolving time. So thank you very much, sir, for taking the time to come into the studios to speak to us here today.
My pleasure.
All right, well, we leave you tonight with the words of former Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, Louis D. Brandeis. If we desire respect for the law, we must first make the law respectable. That's all we have for you tonight on Law, Land and Liberty. If you had missed any of today's programs, you can always rewatch by catching us on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Other Derana English. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good night.